Hey guys, tonight we slip beneath a sky that once terrified the world. Not because of thunder or lightning, not because of stars, but because of something that didn't stay where it was supposed to. A comet, a quiet, streaking smear of fire across the heavens. If you've ever seen one, you'll know it doesn't look dangerous. It looks soft, almost kind. But in the medieval world, the moment someone spotted it, they didn't say, "How pretty." They whispered, "Who's gonna die?" See, back then, the sky was supposed to be perfect, immutable, a stage set by God himself. So when something moved where only stillness belonged, something burned where only cold stars should shine, they panicked. You're standing there in a muddy field in 1212. The harvest wasn't great. The bishop's sermons have been longer than usual. And then one night, someone screams. You look up and it's there. A glowing tail hanging low and angry like a torch tossed across the dark. No one sleeps that night. Some cry, some pray, and you watch it with that same weird mix of awe and dread that makes your stomach twist. That's the mood, the atmosphere you're walking through now. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Let me know where you're listening from and what time it is in your corner of the world. Now, dim the lights. Maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. The first thing you notice isn't fear, it's silence. After the initial shock, after the loud gasps and prayers and muttered curses, the village goes quiet, because no one really knows what to do. The comet is there, and no one invited it. The stars, they're old friends, but this is an intruder. You're not even sure it's real. Not entirely. It doesn't blink. It doesn't move like anything else you know. And yet, it's unmistakably there. White fire smeared across the velvet dark. The local shepherd says he's seen it before, when he was a child. He says it means bad luck, but he doesn't elaborate. A merchant mutters that when his cousin saw a comet, a plague followed within the year. Someone else just crosses themselves again and again until their fingers go numb. Your neighbor's wife refuses to go outside at all. She says it's looking right at her, and nothing you say convinces her otherwise. You start hearing phrases that sound like scripture, but aren't. The sky cries for judgment. It is the sword of the Lord. Something has been loosed. Historians still argue whether ordinary peasants truly had deeply fixed beliefs about celestial signs, or whether these were impressions later layered onto them by chroniclers and priests. But here's what we know: comets were rare, and rarity in the Middle Ages meant power. They weren't understood, so they couldn't be ignored. You don't get to say it's just a rock with ice when you don't even know what space is. You think in terms of signs and portents, not orbit and inertia. You don't ask what caused it, you ask who caused it, and most importantly, why now? The local Lord Steward rides down to the village the next morning, not to offer comfort, to make sure no one is spreading panic. He announces that astrologers have been consulted and the matter is under holy review, which really just means no one knows what's going on. But they don't want the peasants thinking too hard about it. You overhear two men by the well. One thinks it means war. The other says it means the death of someone royal. Both agree it means something bad. You nod, because what else would it mean? Nothing good ever comes from the sky unless it's rain. And this isn't rain. This is something old. Something watching. As the nights go on, you notice that people are behaving strangely. The blacksmith has taken to hanging extra charms over his forge. He says he doesn't want the fire to catch whatever poison is in the air. The baker won't start the oven before sunrise, just in case the comet's light spoils the grain. And your aunt, who never struck you as the religious type, suddenly insists on attending every single church service, muttering something about purifying the soul before the sky judges it. It becomes a ritual. Sunsets, comet appears, people panic. You start avoiding mirrors at night because someone said the comet reflects your sins. You laugh it off, of course, but you stop looking just the same. A traveling friar arrives midweek. He walks barefoot and has a voice like gravel soaked in wine. He tells everyone the comet is a warning. He references Ezekiel, Revelations, something about locusts and stars falling. He holds a sermon under the night sky, and nearly the whole village shows up. You're there too, shivering, watching the way the comet hangs above his head like a halo on fire. He says this is no ordinary time, that the veil between heaven and earth is thin right now, that comets are God's way of drawing in ink across the heavens. The message is unclear, he admits, but unmistakable in its urgency. People weep, some confess, some just stare, and the comet stays. One of the more unsettling rumors floating around the tavern is that the comet doesn't just predict tragedy, it causes it, that its tail is poisonous, that it drips disease into the air. You scoff, but you don't sleep with the windows open anymore. There's talk of a sickness in the next town over. No one's sure if it's real, but no one visits to find out. The roads are quieter, trade slows, even the rats seem more cautious. You start dreaming about the comet. It floats behind your eyes when you close them. You wake up sweating, and for a second, you think the glow is in your room. It's not, but it always takes a while to believe that. Somewhere around day 9, someone starts carving comet shapes into wood and selling them. Protective tokens, they claim. You see a child with one hanging from a string around her neck. It looks nothing like the real thing, but it's something to hold, something to feel like you've done something. A friend gives you one. You thank them. You don't believe in it, not really, but you wear it anyway, just in case. That's the thing about fear. It doesn't ask for logic. It just wants company, and these days, everyone's afraid. You pass a group of monks heading toward the hills. They've come to observe the comet more closely. One of them tells you, rather enthusiastically, that comets are messengers, harbingers, like fire letters from the divine. He says, you ask what the message is. He shrugs. We'll know soon enough. He answers. That night, someone lets their livestock wander out. Said the animals should see it too. It sounds absurd, but when you hear it, it makes some strange kind of sense. Mainstream historians generally agree that for most medieval Europeans, the appearance of a comet was less a curiosity than a confirmation of dread, of punishment, of instability. It was an exclamation point in the sky, a divine punctuation mark. Even when nothing bad happened, people assumed the worst had simply been delayed. They didn't breathe easier when the comet left. They just braced harder, and so do you. Every night, you check the sky before sleeping, and every night, it's still there, bright, burning, waiting. You wake up to gray light and the low sound of someone coughing in the next cottage. It's not new, half the village seems to cough this time of year, but now it feels loaded. Like everything else, it's been reinterpreted through the lens of the comet. The cough isn't just a cough, it's a symptom, a signal. You get up and look outside. The morning fog hasn't lifted yet, but your eyes go instinctively upward, and though it's day, you still sense it like the sky hasn't entirely gone back to normal. It's funny how quickly that feeling sets in. The idea that the sky can be haunted, and worse, that whatever's up there doesn't leave just because the sun rises. You trudge through mud to the bakery, and the baker has already placed a chalk mark in the shape of a star on his door. Not a pretty 5-pointed one, a crude, jagged smear. You ask what it's for, and he tells you it's protection against the starfire. He says, you don't ask more. You don't need to. That's what it's called now in Whisper's Starfire, as if by renaming it, you could somehow grasp it. You get your bread and keep walking. The priest passes you without his usual greeting. He's pale. He's been fasting again. Some say he hasn't spoken a full sentence since the comet arrived. Some say he's waiting for it to speak first. The rumor now is that comets make kings fall. Not metaphorically, literally. There's a whisper on every tongue someone important is going to die. They just don't know who yet. And this belief, this death by sky, has teeth. You reach the manor house just in time to see the steward nailing up a parchment on the outer post. It's a proclamation. The local baron has summoned his astrologer, who has apparently been poring over charts and scriptures day and night. The document says the comet is a troubling sign, but one that may pass if piety increases. You squint. It's a vague kind of hope, but people cling to it. A candlelit vigil is held that night. A dozen villagers kneel in the frost, murmuring prayers and holding lanterns up toward the burning sky. A child cries. No one scolds her. The idea that comets cause political chaos isn't new even in your time. You overheard an older man say that in the year of his father's birth, a great comet burned for months, and not long after, a war began in the southern provinces. Historians still argue whether the deaths of kings and appearances of comets, truly correlated more than random chance would suggest. Some insist it was all coincidence, others point to the uncanny timing. In the medieval mind, however, correlation didn't need proving. Belief had its own gravity. If you believed a comet had power, then it did socially, psychologically, spiritually, and right now, you're watching the entire village bend under its weight. You visit the carpenter's son, who's been making wooden carvings for months, saints, angels, rosaries. Now he started carving comets, not just talismans, but full statues, comets with teeth, comets with wings, comets shaped like serpents curled around the earth. He says he saw it in a dream. His father scolds him for wasting wood, but the villagers come anyway, paying a few coins to take one home. You hold one of the serpent comets in your hand. It's rough, splintered, and ridiculous, but your fingers won't let go of it. You buy it. You don't explain why. And then someone says it's not just death or war, it's pestilence. That the tail of the comet is dripping some invisible poison down on everyone. You hear it at the well, a young woman refusing to drink unless the water's been blessed. The midwife murmurs that a fever has begun spreading in a nearby hamlet, and people nod as if the comet were stirring a spoon in some unseen cauldron above their heads. The village healer begins handing out bundles of herbs mint, sage, dried angelica meant to be burned by windows and doorways. The smell drifts through the streets like incense, sharp and earthy. You find yourself breathing it in a little deeper than usual. The plague theory gains traction quickly. You learn that in other towns. People are burning sulfur in the streets to ward off disease. You even hear one particularly odd tale from a traveling tinker. He claims that in a distant city, doctors are wearing beaked masks filled with flowers, like birds of death, all because of the sky. You laugh, but he doesn't. He just shrugs and says, "Better to stink like roses than rot like a corpse." You don't know whether to believe him, but you do start seeing more smoke in the air, more herbs hung from windows. People are afraid to touch each other. The mood is tightening, like a noose. There's one man, a quiet one who lives near the woods, who insists the comet is a blessing. He says it's a purifier, that it only kills the wicked. You wonder how he knows who's wicked. He doesn't say, just smiles and goes back to skinning whatever animal he's caught that day. His cottage smells of blood and pine. You don't visit often. One night, the comet flares brighter, or maybe the sky is just clearer, but it feels closer, bigger. A woman swears she saw it flicker, like a wink. Another says it's grown a second tail, a forked tongue. You see it too, or think you do. The stories evolve. Some say it's an angel with a sword. Others say it's the eye of Leviathan. A drunk man in the tavern calls it God's matchstick. And people laugh, but nervously. And somewhere deep down, you start to believe a little too, because the mind wants stories, and the sky is the best canvas. The church bells ring more often now, not just for services, but for prayers, warnings, superstitions. They say sound drives away evil. One night, you're jolted awake by their clanging, and for a moment, you think something's coming. But it's just fear, moving through the village like smoke through a chimney. In bed, you stare at the ceiling and try not to count the seconds between the bells. Outside, the wind howls. Or maybe it's just the sky shifting. Either way, you can't sleep. There's a story passed along by an old widow that comets are God's scribes, that they take notes across the heavens, writing down the names of the condemned in fire. It's a terrifying idea. You imagine your name glowing across the dark, etched in smoke and spark. You imagine trying to erase it and failing. The next morning, you find chalk markings on your door. Someone has drawn protection sigils. You don't know who, but you leave them there. You notice people starting to track the comet's progress. Someone has etched a calendar into the bark of a tree. Another draws crude sketches of its movement in the dirt. You join in, not because you understand astronomy, but because it gives you a sense of control. If it's predictable, it's maybe less monstrous, maybe, and still, it burns. The days blur together, but the comet does not. It sharpens, it stretches, you swear it grows. By now, it feels like an intruder you live with, like a strange cousin who won't leave, always just outside your window. Each night it hangs there like judgment caught in amber. You tell yourself not to look. You look anyway. Everyone does. It's become a ritual, almost sacred sundown, bread cut, then the slow turn of the head to see if it's still there. And it always is. The children have stopped playing near the woods. The laughter has drained from the square. Even the dogs bark less. It's as if the whole village has inhaled and is afraid to exhale. There's a tension you can't name. Something low and tight and ancient. Like your bones remember something your mind doesn't. The comet doesn't move quickly, but you feel chased all the same. You don't run, but you don't sit still either. That odd dance between acceptance and panic plays out in small things: how you stir your soup, how you open the door, how you glance at the moon and wonder if it's next. At market, the price of salt has doubled, not because it's rare, but because someone claims salt can block bad humor stirred up by the sky. You don't know if it's true, but your neighbor buys a whole sack. She spreads it around her doorstep like a protective circle. You hear another man is boiling vinegar and bathing in it. You don't ask why. You already know the answer. Desperation makes even nonsense feel like hope. You find yourself holding your breath when you pass under the open sky, just in case. And when someone coughs behind you, you flinch before you smile. Everyone does. A man sneezed near the tavern yesterday, and 3 people crossed themselves without even thinking. The friar returns. The one with the gravel voice and bare feet. He hasn't slept. His eyes are red. He walks the village like a shadow, preaching repentance with a thin smile. His sermons are quieter now, less fire and brimstone, more whisper and sorrow. He says the comet is a mirror, that whatever we fear in it is just what we fear in ourselves. You think that's poetic until he starts calling out names during prayer, asking who among you has lied, who has cheated, who has sinned in secret. He doesn't name yours, but he looks at you a second too long. You don't return the gaze. You just stare past him, at the smear of white still burning in the sky like an accusation. Some villagers say it's a flaming sword, a divine weapon held back for now, but only just. Others say it's a serpent chasing the sun, always just behind it. There's even a rumor that it's the ghost of a star that died wrong, and now it wanders until the heavens are cleansed. You hear this from the old weaver who started muttering to herself in Latin. You didn't know she knew Latin. She probably doesn't, but she believes she does. And that's more than enough. She weaves faster now, as if to finish all her threads before the sky snaps hers. You walk out to the hill one evening, just before dusk, where the grass is thin and the wind speaks low. You sit, you wait, and there it is. The first blink of starfire, just peeking above the tree line. You realize you've memorized the shape of it, like a scar. The tail curves longer now. Some say that means it's closer. Others say it means nothing at all. Historians still argue whether medieval observers could truly notice such changes, or whether they simply imagined the comet swelling because their fear did. But you're not a historian. You're just cold, and tired, and watching the sky like it owes you an explanation. Behind you, someone clears their throat. It's the Baron's steward, appearing like mist. He sits beside you without a word. You nod. He nods. Together you watch in silence. After a time, he says, "I saw one before, in my youth. My sister died the week it vanished." You don't answer. You don't know how. After another pause, he continues. "Some men see dragons. Others see daggers. I just see fire that does not warm." Then he leaves, like a shadow folding into dusk. There's a new chant among the children now. A little rhyme they sing when the comet's bright. White light in the sky. Someone's going to die. Tail like a whip. Blood on the lip. It's nonsense, but it gets stuck in your head. You catch yourself whispering it as you mend a torn shirt, and you hate yourself a little for that. Because even in the face of fear, humans love rhythm. We want our terror to rhyme. At the edge of the village, someone has built a shrine, not to a saint, to the comet. Stones arranged in a spiral, bits of bone and twine at the center, offerings of herbs and coins. No one claims to have made it, but people visit anyway. You do too. You don't leave anything. You just stand there and listen to the wind. And it feels different there, like the air has weight, like you've stepped into a story and can't step back out. You dream of the comet, not just once, but often. Sometimes it's falling. Sometimes it speaks. Once it took the shape of your mother and said nothing at all. You wake up with a taste of ash in your mouth. You check the sky before you move. You always do. You half expect it to be gone. It never is. There's talk now that a noble has died in the next county. No one knows who or how, or even if it's true, but it doesn't matter. The comet is blamed. It must be. That's the rule now. The friar calls it the burning proof. You wonder if that's how history will record it, a fiery truth that pointed, condemned, and passed without explanation. Maybe someone will find a drawing of it centuries later and ask what it meant, and no one will know. One of the monks from the hills returns with a parchment full of diagrams and ink stars. He tries to explain retrograde motion to you using pebbles and a stick. You nod politely. You don't understand? You don't need to. His words sound like rain on a roof, soothing, meaningless. You don't care how the comet moves. You care what it means, and no pebble or stick can draw that. Still, the comet lingers. You can't even remember the sky without it anymore. It's as if it's always been there, and always will be. You wonder if people in other towns see the same thing, feel the same chill, carry the same dreams. You wonder what it's doing to them, whether their prayers sound like yours, whether their fears rhyme too. And through it all, through salt and herbs, through friars and diagrams, the comet does the same thing night after night. It burns. By now, even your dreams have begun to smell like smoke. You don't remember when it started, but the line between waking and sleep has blurred like frost on a window. The comet is everywhere, in the water, in the bread, in the way people speak slower and hold eye contact just a little too long. Even in the animals, something has changed. The dogs bark less but stare more. The crows gather on the chapel roof like black punctuation marks. You saw a goat refuse to eat for 2 days, only to break its silence by ramming the stable door as if trying to escape something no one else could see. And through all of this, the comet hangs there, a pale blade hung above the world. Your neighbor says it hasn't moved in 5 days. Another says it's changed direction. You don't know what to believe, but you check every night like clockwork. You try not to look for too long, but your eyes always return. It's hypnotic. A slow, cold fire you can't put out, because it's not on Earth, and that makes it worse. You can't run. You can't fight. You can only witness. There's an old man who's taken to sitting by the well with a sack of bones. No one knows his name, or where he came from. He claims the bones whisper truths when the comet is high. He throws them like dice and grunts at their arrangement. People start paying him for interpretations. At first it's a novelty. Then it becomes serious. One woman bursts into tears when he tells her the bones see a drowned child in her future. She hasn't let her son near the river since. You walk by him once and he points at you without speaking. Just stares, like he's measuring your shadow. You don't go back. Some villagers start lighting fires at sunset, not for warmth, but as offerings. Flames climb into the night, as if trying to mimic the comet's tail. The air begins to reek of soot and pine. You cough more often. So does everyone else. The village healer starts brewing something stronger. Mugwort, garlic, crushed acorns. She says it calms the blood. No one knows if it works, but people line up anyway. The tavern is quieter now. No laughter, no dice, no songs. Just whispered stories and the occasional scrape of a wooden cup across the table. You overhear someone say, "It's looking for someone." Another voice replies, "It already found them." A friar from the next town arrives, traveling alone with nothing but a lantern and a knotted rope. He delivers a sermon in the square, voice trembling, eyes wide. He says the comet is a whip in God's hand, that it lashes the heavens in warning. He tells a story about a farmer who saw a similar light 50 years ago and dug a pit in his field to bury his sins. He claims the man vanished a week later, never found. People believe him. They want to. It's easier than facing the silence above. You go to sleep that night, imagining a celestial whip slicing through clouds, carving grief into the world below. You wake with a headache and the feeling that your room is too bright, even with the shutters closed. Historians still debate whether comets genuinely triggered mass panic, or whether fear spread more through stories than sight. But you're living the difference now. You've seen the way eyes avoid each other, the way the village's rhythm has slowed like a heartbeat fading in a fevered body. You saw a boy cry just from looking up. You saw a grown man kneel in the middle of the street and confess to stealing grain 3 years ago. You even saw the priest break down during a sermon, sobbing that he had not been faithful enough to shield his flock. None of this is imagination. It's something older and deeper than that. Something primal, dragging belief from the blood itself. You go to the woods one evening, following a trail you half remember. You don't know why. Maybe to be alone. Maybe to scream without anyone hearing. But you don't scream. You just sit among the trees and stare at a patch of sky through the canopy. The comet winks at you from above, filtered through leaves like a god hiding behind curtains. You wonder what would happen if you stopped returning to the village. If you stayed out here, away from the rituals, the fear, the stares. But even the forest feels watched. You hear a twig snap behind you and you freeze. It's probably nothing. It's always probably nothing. But still, your heart races like it knows better. At home, your younger cousin has started drawing the comet over and over in charcoal. She doesn't talk much anymore. She just scribbles long tails, bright heads, fire bursting from stars. You ask her why? She says the sky keeps showing it to her, so she's showing it back. One night, she tears up the drawings and burns them. The next day, she begins again. You start to notice similar drawings in other homes, crudely scratched onto shutters, scrawled into dirt, etched into tree bark. It's as if people believe drawing it will make it less powerful, like pinning a name to a demon. One afternoon, a merchant arrives with a bundle of old books and claims he has answers. He says they're texts from Arab astrologers, scholars who understood the stars better than anyone in Christendom. He speaks of houses and conjunctions, of fire signs and lunar influences. Most of it goes over your head, but he says this comets appear when the heavens have had enough. He leaves the next morning, but the phrase lingers. It feels true, whether or not it is. You repeat it in your head like a charm. When the heavens have had enough, your sleep gets lighter. You wake often, usually in the middle of the night, heart pounding and no reason for it. Once, you swear the comet pulsed, just for a second, like it breathed. You tell no one. You don't want to give it voice. To name something is to let it in. You've learned that much. The local blacksmith forges a metal charm shaped like an eye and begins wearing it around his neck. Says it reflects the comet's gaze. The others scoff, but 2 days later he sells out of them. You wear one now too. It's heavy, cold against your skin, but it makes you feel watched less, even if only slightly. A farmer starts burying eggs at the corners of his field, swearing it keeps the sky from spoiling the crops. His neighbors laugh until their wheat turns gray. Then they bury eggs too. One night, the comet disappears, just gone. You look up and it's not there. A strange calm settles over the village like dust. The priest rings the church bell twice, softly. The tavern reopens. Someone sings. You exhale for the first time in weeks. People laugh too loudly, eat too much, stay out too late, but something feels off. You don't trust the silence. And sure enough, the next night, it's back, brighter than before. You hear someone scream, then nothing. You don't speak much anymore. You listen, you watch, and the sky, in its unblinking way, watches back. The comet doesn't just return, it announces itself, bigger, sharper, trailing a second, fainter tail like a shadow. You stare at it with dry eyes, and it feels like staring into an old wound. No one says anything at first. There's a stunned hush across the village that spreads like frost, and then the stories start again, but darker now, more vivid. The weaver claims it blinked red. The midwife says she heard a baby cry from inside a womb. A shepherd sees wolves pacing the edge of the tree line and declares that the animals know something we don't. You can't argue. You feel it too, like the air has been cut in half, like the sky no longer trusts the ground. Even your own hands seem strange to you now, trembling, too warm. You wash them over and over. You can't explain why. It just feels necessary. Everyone has developed rituals. A boy down the lane now whistles every time he sees it, swearing it keeps his mother safe. A woman only speaks at sunrise. A butcher carves crosses into every slab of meat. You find yourself knocking on wood when your thoughts get too heavy. And then you knock again, just to be sure. The friar's voice has grown quieter, no longer proclaiming doom. He now whispers about grace. He says the comet may not be punishment, but revelation. That what we see in the sky is what has always been inside us, only now set alight. You want to believe him. You want to believe there is meaning in this, but when you walk past the chapel, you see him sitting alone with his eyes fixed upward and a tear tracing a line down his cheek. If this is revelation, it doesn't look kind. You stop going to church, not because you've lost faith, but because the silence inside feels too similar to the one outside, and you don't want the two to merge. One afternoon, an argument breaks out in the square. Two men shout about whether to flee the village. One claims the comet is circling, marking this place, that it always returns to where it intends to fall. The other says nowhere is safe, that running only makes you easier to strike. People gather but don't interrupt. They just watch, like spectators before a storm. You feel the tension twisting, like a rope pulled too tight, and still, above it all, the comet burns. It does not waver. It does not blink. A traveling minstrel arrives days later with a ballad about a comet that once fell in love with a mountain. He sings softly, his fingers moving like river water across the strings. The story is sweet, but the words feel wrong. No one claps. When he finishes, someone mutters, "It's not a lover, it's a curse." The minstrel leaves that night without asking for coin. You find yourself humming his tune days later, even though you tried not to remember it. That's how these things work. The stories cling even when the truth slips. At the edge of the village, a group has begun holding vigils. Not prayer, something older. They light candles in a circle and hum low notes until their voices blend with the wind. They don't invite others, but people join anyway. You go once, stand at a distance. The sound is strange, neither sad nor joyful, just constant, like a lullaby for something too big to cradle. A woman places a flower in the center of the circle and whispers, "This is not for us. This is for it." You leave before she says anything else. Historians still argue whether these rituals, these communal expressions of awe and terror, reflect organized belief or spontaneous folklore. But living it, you know it doesn't matter. It happens because it must. People do not know what the comet is, but they know it watches, that it returns, that it burns, and that is enough to create 1,000 behaviors, 1,000 songs, 1,000 small acts of hope and fear wrapped into one another like vines on a dying tree. You begin to notice patterns. The comet appears brightest after windless days. Children fall ill more frequently the longer it hangs. You don't know if these are coincidences or connections, but your mind starts weaving them together. You catch yourself thinking things like, if I don't look at it tonight, nothing bad will happen. You do look every time, but you still tell yourself that story. Just like your aunt claims she's been talking to her dead husband in dreams and that he warned her to stay inside on the third Thursday. You scoff, then mark your calendar. There's talk now of a noble's army moving in the distance, that war's coming, that the comet has lit the fuse. You don't know if it's true, but there are more horses on the road, more armor, and the blacksmith has stopped making plows. Now it's blades. His hammer sounds different, harder, faster, like a warning bell no one dares name. The Baron rides through the village one afternoon, armored and unsmiling. He looks up once, quickly, then keeps moving. At home, your cousin has stopped drawing. She started digging, just small holes, no bigger than a loaf of bread. She buries things, a toy, a scarf, a rock shaped like a face. When you ask her why, she says, so it doesn't see them. You don't ask more. You start dreaming about digging too, the earth in your hands, the sky pressing down, a voice telling you to bury your name. One evening, a lightning storm crosses the valley. For a brief moment, the comet is framed by fire and thunder. People scream, a child faints. You just watch, transfixed. The storm ends, but the comet doesn't fade. It shines through the clouds like an accusation. like it's untouched by earthly weather. The next morning, a cow is born with 2 heads. Some call it a sign, others say it's unrelated, but the midwife who delivered it won't speak at all. You begin to hear new stories, not warnings, but futures. One man claims he saw a vision of a city made of glass, lit by a sky filled with comets that healed instead of burned. A girl says the comet told her she would live forever. These stories are strange, hopeful in a way that feels dangerous, because hope means you think you understand something and you don't. You've seen what misunderstanding can do. A man once prayed too loudly and vanished. They say he walked into the river and never came out. His shoes were found on the bank, facing the sky, and still, night after night, the comet remains. No longer a stranger. Now it is a constant, like hunger, like winter, like death. You wonder if there was ever a time it wasn't there. You try to remember the sky without it, and it feels impossible. As if this was always part of the plan, as if it belongs more than you do. You wake before dawn now, not because you must, but because your dreams keep ejecting you. Always some version of falling into rivers, from towers, through skies filled with fire that never touches the ground. You sit upright, sweat drying on your skin like frost. The room is dark, but not empty, never empty. The comet, though out of sight for now, lingers in the very air you breathe. It's in the hush before the rooster calls, in the flicker of the oil lamp when no breeze is near. You light a small flame and hold it close, like an anchor. Your cousin is already awake. She sits by the hearth with her back to you, whispering to someone you can't see. You don't interrupt. You've both stopped asking each other questions. The answers never help. Outside, the ground is stiff with cold, but the villagers are already stirring. You can feel them moving like ants inside a shaken nest. You step into your boots and walk toward the well, not because you're thirsty, but because routine is the last thing left that feels solid. The water is colder than it should be. You look up, the sky is pale, the comet is hidden, but you know it's there, just behind the morning's thin veil, waiting. By now, no one debates what the comet means. They just debate who it's for. Is it the village? The land? The world? A priest declared it a sword. A merchant called it a wound. A child simply pointed and cried. You've heard it said that comets are the fingerprints of angels or the residue of divine rage. One friar, sleep-deprived and glass-eyed, claimed that every soul has a thread, and when too many threads twist, the sky snaps one loose, burning it across the heavens as a reminder. He said this in the middle of a sermon, then fainted. He's still recovering. They say, won't speak, just stares through the window at nothing. You pass by his cell sometimes. He doesn't blink. The crops are brittle, the fields are thin, the livestock are restless. Someone says the moon has turned pale. Another says it's just the clouds. The healer has begun preparing for births with twice the usual prayers and half the confidence. You visit her for a tincture of valerian to sleep, but she looks at you and says, nothing stops the sky. Then she gives you something anyway. It tastes like iron and mint. That night, you dream of the comet again. But this time it's inside a chapel, not above, but within, floating like incense, coiling around beams of sacred light. No one sees it but you. Everyone else prays. You wake crying. A new group has arrived from the next valley pilgrims, barefoot and bruised, their feet wrapped in cloth dark with blood. They carry no banners, only branches tied with ribbons. They say they follow the comet because it is the last sign. Of what? They don't say. They stay outside the village, singing low songs with no words, just vowels that stretch like wind through pine. At night, you hear them humming beneath your window. One child joins them. Her parents don't protest. The next day, they hang herbs over their door and do not speak. Historians still argue whether these processions were coordinated movements or spontaneous reactions born of collective trauma. But when you watch them kneel in unison at sunset, arms lifted to the streak of light, it's hard to see them as anything but deliberate. They move like tidewater gentle, unstoppable, shaped by gravity no one understands. You wonder if they see something you don't. or if you've seen too much already. That week, the wind changes, comes from the east now, sharp and dry. A man claims he smelled sulfur at dawn. Another says the trees whisper his name when it blows. You find yourself sleeping with your ears uncovered, as if waiting to hear something, and sometimes you do. A creak, a sigh, once, the distinct sound of knocking from the air itself. No one believes you. You don't insist. Belief is cheap, doubt is heavier. The blacksmith begins building strange shapes out of scrap metal rings within rings, spirals, long pointed rods that catch the moonlight. He won't say what they are. Someone jokes that he's making weapons for angels. He doesn't laugh. You see him working by torchlight late into the night, face smeared with ash, hands blistered raw. He hums to himself now, tuneless and soft, like a man preparing for something unspeakable. Your cousin buries her last drawing. This time it's just a single black line stretching across a white scrap of linen. No head, no tail, just the trace. You ask her what it means. She says, "It's how it ends." You don't press. She hasn't spoken much since she stopped drawing. You start to speak less too. There's a quiet now that feels earned, like words must be saved, not spent. You notice others doing the same. The village feels like a book near its final page. Everyone waiting to see if the story lands or fades. Then a messenger arrives, thin, wind-chapped, bearing news from the king's court. A comet has been seen across the kingdom, not just here, everywhere. From icy northern peaks to warm southern coasts. The message is this: pray, prepare, and be pure. No further instructions, just those words. You hear them repeated by the steward, by the priest, by mothers at night to their children like lullabies turned warnings. You write them in your own hand, not to remember, to prove that you were here when it was said. One night, the comet blinks. You see it, just once a flutter, a pulse, a hesitation. You freeze. The air stills. Time folds. Then it's back, still, blazing. You ask others. Some say yes. Others say no. One man says the blink was a question. Another says it was laughter. You don't know which chills you more. Then the animals begin to die. Not many. Not all at once. But enough. A pig. 2 goats. A crow that crashes into the church door. The deaths aren't violent. Just hollow. As if life simply stepped out. The healer buries them herself, muttering something about not letting the sky reclaim what still belongs to the soil. She looks thinner each day, and older. You realize she may not make it through the winter. Still, the comet burns. You try to remember the time before the silence, before the cold rituals, before the sky mattered. But it's like trying to remember a dream you never had. You keep seeing that blink, that pulse, that impossible breath. You keep listening at night for sounds you don't want to hear. You stop eating with others, stop laughing, not because you're sad, but because those things feel too heavy now, like wearing armor in water. You walk more, through the woods, past the chapel, toward the edge of the hills where the pilgrims once sang. The grass has grown in strange patches. You step carefully, and always above you, it hangs, not fading, not changing, just being, the comet. You start marking time by the comet instead of the calendar, not Monday or market day anymore, but the day it looked sharper, or the night it hovered closer to the moon. It's become the clock tower, the sun, the scripture. Everything revolves around its slow, motionless blaze. Even the birds seem to fly under it now, not across. You wake each morning with the same question. Is it still there? And it always is. So unchanged, so cruelly persistent, that it begins to feel like a test. The kind where no one tells you the rules, just waits to see how long you last. You hear someone mutter that it's not the sky that's cursed, but time itself, that we've passed into some crooked hour that won't pass. The days blur, light turns stranger. Even noon has a metallic tinge to it now. And the shadows look too long, even when they're short. The baker stops opening on Wednesdays. He says bread doesn't rise the same anymore. You don't know if that's true. You eat it anyway. Because what else is there to do but chew and wait? The friar hasn't spoken in 4 days. Not aloud, but he hums. A 3-note pattern, low and haunting. People hear it and echo it without realizing. The village starts humming in waves, like a strange kind of communion. Even babies do it. A rhythmic grief that doesn't ask permission. You catch yourself doing it once while washing your hands. Stop, then start again. It's in your throat now, like a prayer or a lump. Meanwhile, the comet sharpens. That's the only word that fits. It looks sharper, more defined, like it could cut. You've seen drawings in old books where comets look like smears, soft and cloudy. This is not that. This is a blade carved across the dark, a needle, an eye. The old man with the sack of bones has stopped throwing them. Now he just sits and watches. Sometimes he weeps, sometimes he smiles. No one asks what he sees anymore. The last time someone did, he said, "It's already written." You don't know what he meant, but you believe him. The blacksmith, who once made charms and star-shaped talismans, has turned to building cages, not for animals. Too small, too intricate. Maybe for birds, maybe for sins. You walk past his forge and see dozens of them hanging from hooks like empty prayers. He doesn't look up when you pass. Your cousin has taken to writing letters to the comet, not to send, just to write. She folds them carefully, places them in a wooden box, and buries it each week under a different tree. She says it's polite to answer when someone watches you this long. You don't argue, you help her dig. The ground is soft now, as if it too has been changed by the gaze from above. She writes things like, "What do you want?" and "Have you already chosen?" Her handwriting is neater now, as if the comet sees it. Historians debate whether comets influence behavior through fear or fascination, but you live in a world where those two feelings are the same. You can't separate awe from dread anymore. The sky has made them one. You remember how, before this, you used to be afraid of wolves in the forest, of bandits on the road. Those were sharp fears. Fears you could name. This is different. This is a fog that gets into your chest. You're not afraid of dying. You're afraid of meaning. Of the possibility that this light, this constant celestial wound, means something you're not ready to understand. You start to dream in fragments. Fire reflected in water, a staircase of bones, a door in the sky. Sometimes the comet speaks, but never in words. Just presence. Just awareness. You wake with phrases in your mouth that sound holy, but vanish by morning. Once you wake with dirt under your fingernails and no memory of digging. You ask no one. You speak less now. People who speak too much seem brittle. There's a new pattern among the villagers, a ritual, though no one names it. At dusk, they gather near the crossroads and simply stand in silence, not praying, not chanting, just being still, facing the same direction, waiting. You go once, you stand with them, and it feels almost peaceful, not because you're safe, but because at least you're not alone. That night, you sleep without dreaming. In the morning, someone has drawn the comet's shape on your door in ash. You don't clean it. That week, the priest dies, quietly, in his sleep. They say he had no wounds, just stopped breathing. They bury him quickly, in consecrated ground. But the ceremony is different now. Shorter, tighter, as if everyone wants to avoid tempting the sky. The new priest is younger. He doesn't smile. He wears black even on feast days. His sermons are quieter but more direct. Do not ask what it wants, he says. Ask what it reveals. A child disappears. No scream, no struggle, just gone. Left her shoes by the door. Her mother walks the village 3 times, calling her name until her voice cracks. No one speaks of it. You hear someone say, "The sky collects." You don't ask what that means. The phrase stays with you anyway. Another storm. This time, hail. Stones like teeth clatter on rooftops, breaking tiles, shattering windows. You watch from under a table. When it's over, the sky clears unnaturally fast, and the comet shines brighter than you've ever seen it. For a moment, it looks red, blood red, then white again. You don't know if it changed or if your eyes are playing tricks. Maybe both, maybe neither. The healer vanishes the next night, her hut left open, her tools untouched, just a bowl of water placed neatly in the center of the room. You check the water. It smells faintly of lavender and something you can't place like burnt honey. You leave it alone. Everyone does. Her absence feels like punctuation. You visit the hill again, alone this time. The wind is still. You sit for a long while without looking up, and then, slowly, you raise your eyes. The comet is there, as always, but something feels different, as if it's not just there to be seen anymore, as if it's waiting. For what? You don't know, but you feel it, in your skin, in your breath, in the hush between thoughts. You speak to it, then not aloud, just in your mind. One word. Why? And for a moment, you feel something answer. Not a voice, not a thought, just warmth. And then it's gone. You walk home with shaking legs. The bells stop ringing. No one says why. The ropes hang limp. The tower quiet. You wonder if they stopped because the sound no longer works, or because no one dares break the silence anymore. You check them yourself one afternoon. They're still there, still functional, but you don't ring them either. At night, you start leaving food outside. Just a crust, a slice of apple, a boiled egg. You don't know who it's for. You just know it feels right. Some nights the food is gone. Some mornings it's untouched. You don't check too closely, and still it burns. Above all, beyond all, without explanation or end. It's the sound that changes next, or rather, the absence of it. One morning, you notice the birds have stopped singing. No crows, no sparrows, not even the low coo of pigeons nesting in the church roof. Just the soft hush of wind brushing over frostbitten leaves. You tilt your head, trying to hear something that isn't there, and the silence curls around your ears like cold linen. You're not the only one who notices. By noon, people begin whispering about omens. Some claim the birds have flown to safety. Others say they've simply gone still, waiting for what's to come. Either way, the village feels heavier, like the breath has gone out of it. Even the dogs are subdued. They move slowly, tails low, ears back, as if they too sense a shift in the weight of the world. You feel it in your ribs. Not fear exactly, but pressure. The kind of pressure you feel before a storm. The kind that makes your teeth ache. You light candles without thinking. So many that your room glows even at midday. Not for warmth, not even for light. Just to fight the feeling of being watched. The comet isn't visible during the day, but that doesn't stop your mind from placing it there anyway. Hovering behind clouds, behind the sun, just waiting for night to fall again. You begin sleeping in shorter stretches. An hour here, 2 there. You dream in loops. Not full stories, just repeating moments. Footsteps on wet ground. Your cousin's voice asking, "Is it inside yet?" A child's toy rolling across the floor without wind. The taste of ash. Always ash. You wake each time with your fingers clenched into fists, nails digging into your palm so hard it leaves crescent moons for hours after. The pilgrims have returned, or perhaps they never truly left. They're different now, quieter. Some wear blindfolds, others wear cloaks stitched with images of stars and flames. You see one man with his face painted white, standing at the edge of the field, arms outstretched toward the sky for hours. He doesn't move, not even when it rains. Eventually, he collapses. They carry him away gently, humming. You realize they're not afraid, or if they are, they've gone through it to something else on the other side. You envy them for a moment. Then you feel ashamed. The blacksmith's cages are gone now. In their place, a large wheel of iron, almost the size of a man, with spokes and markings you can't read. You ask what it's for. He says, to catch the sound when it breaks. You don't ask again. His hands are always shaking now. Even when he holds nothing, he's begun sleeping in the forge. Says it's safer. No one questions what that means anymore. Words like safe or dangerous have lost their boundaries. A second comet appears, fainter, smaller, but there. You notice it first, then others. Some deny it. Others say it was always there, and only now do we deserve to see it. Your cousin says it's a watcher for the first one, a scribe, that it takes note of who looks away. You stop looking away. Every night, you stand outside and let your eyes burn until you see spots. You want it to know you see it. You don't know why that matters, but it does. The river has changed too. It flows slower now. The sound of it dull, like water tired of moving. Someone says fish have stopped appearing in nets. Another says they've seen reflections that don't match the surface. You go once to check. The water is dark, still. You look in and see your own face. Then another behind it. You blink, it's gone. Or maybe it never was. You don't return. You notice something else. Something small. Plants are blooming out of season. A rosebud in frost. A violet on stone. A tree that has begun to flower in the dead of winter. At first, it feels like a miracle. Then it feels wrong. Beauty at the wrong time is like laughter at a funeral, more unsettling than silence. You watch the petals curl outward like mouths trying to speak. The village begins to change in stranger ways. People rearrange their homes. Windows boarded that don't face the comet. Doors repainted. Rooms emptied. Someone fills a cellar with soil and begins sleeping underground. Another builds a nest of straw in the rafters and sleeps above it all. You ask why? She says, the closer to the stars, the farther from the strike. Her eyes don't blink evenly anymore. One always seems to lag behind. You hear the phrase, the sky is thinning more often now. As if the boundary between here and there is weakening. As if soon we'll see through it. Or fall through. One night, the wind carries a smell no one can place something sweet and burnt and metallic. You breathe it in. It coats your tongue for hours. You can't forget it. You dream that night of walking on a sky made of glass, and below it, another earth. But upside down, another version of you looking up. A cow gives birth to a calf with no eyes. The villagers bury it without ceremony, but someone leaves a candle burning on the mound. For 3 days, no one speaks of it. Then someone sculpts its shape in clay and leaves it on the chapel steps. No one takes it away. It stays. It gathers dust. The silence deepens. No more bells. No more hymns. The pilgrims don't chant. The friar doesn't hum. The birds don't return. The only sound left is the wind through chimes people no longer hang. You start talking to yourself just to hear something. Just to fill the space before thought. One night, you ask aloud, is this how it ends? Your voice sounds strange, unfamiliar. You don't say it again. And still, the comet glows, now with a strange shimmer to it, like oil on water. You see colors in its tail, subtle, shifting green, violet, something like gold. It no longer looks like a flame, more like a rift, like a wound that never closes. You wonder if the stars behind it are missing. You can't remember what the sky looked like without it. You try, you fail. You feel grief rise in your chest like tide water. Your cousin brings you a drawing. It's of the comet. Yes, but not in the sky. It's inside a house. Your house, hovering above your bed. It came in, she says. You don't ask if it was a dream. You hang the drawing anyway. Above your bed, just in case. That night, you sleep without fear. Not because the fear is gone, but because there's nothing left for it to devour. You are empty. And in that emptiness, something like peace, or the memory of it. The last thing you hear before sleep takes you is a whisper, not in your ears, but in your bones, soon. And still, the sky does not blink. You don't keep track of the days anymore. The concept of time has thinned, like old cloth familiar, but no longer functional. You measure life now in flickers, how long the comet burns before the clouds cover it, how many heartbeats between one strange event and the next. Someone mentions that the sun has been rising at the wrong angle. You look the next morning and think maybe they're right. The light seems less like dawn and more like a lantern behind fog. You rub your eyes, but the world doesn't sharpen. The village walks in a kind of dream now, slow, quiet, reverent. No one runs. No one shouts. You pass people who stare through you as if you're part of the landscape. A few still nod. Most don't. You do the same. Politeness has been replaced by presence. There's no need for small talk when everyone is carrying the same unspoken weight. The comet above is no longer just an object, it has become a condition. Like cold, like grief, something you adjust to, but never escape. You can't recall when that shift occurred. You only know that you no longer feel the need to understand it. It's here, it's watching, and so you wait. Your cousin doesn't speak much anymore, but she's taken to singing not words, just long vowel sounds, like a lullaby hummed through water. You find her sitting in the middle of the floor, facing corners instead of windows. It listens better when I don't look at it, she says. You don't ask what it is. You assume the same thing you always do now. The comet. What else is there? The world has narrowed to two things. What happens beneath it, and what it might mean. You eat less, sleep less, and yet your body continues, as if fueled by something beyond food or rest. The baker hasn't opened in over a week. No one complains. They just knock once on his door, then leave a coin out of habit. One morning, you wake to find your door marked, not in ash or chalk, but with small bones, bird bones, maybe arranged in a circle at the threshold. You step over them, carefully. No one takes credit. You assume it's a warning, or protection, but you don't touch it. Later that day, you see similar circles outside other homes, some made of twigs, others with flowers pressed into mud. The village is ornamenting itself like a body preparing for burial. It's both beautiful and terrible. You begin adding to the one at your door a pebble, a coin, a sprig of rosemary, not because you believe it matters, because it feels disrespectful not to. The blacksmith has disappeared. No note, no trace, just his tools left neatly on the table, and a shallow groove in the dirt where his footsteps ended. You hear someone suggest he crossed over. No one asks what that means. The forge is cold now, silent. The iron wheel still stands beside it, catching moonlight like a mirror that never reflects faces. You pass it quickly. A woman from the next village arrives, dragging a broken cart filled with feathers. She says they're from birds that flew straight into walls, over and over, until they collapsed. They're trying to get out. She whispers, "You don't ask out of what?" She trades the feathers for bread. Someone hangs them in trees. You find yourself watching them sway in the wind, waiting for a pattern, for a message. The sky offers none. That week, another fire. A cottage goes up in flames at dusk. No one screams. No one runs to help. They just watch. You're among them, face lit orange, eyes dry. The comet gleams above the smoke like a god nodding in approval. After the fire dies, no one speaks of rebuilding. A circle of stones appears where the house stood, and someone places a bowl of milk in the center. It curdles before dawn. Historians still debate whether such behavior rituals, silence, spontaneous myth-making was driven by fear or by the human need for narrative. But to you, it feels simpler when the world stops making sense. You start creating sense from whatever's left, shapes, smells, dreams, a face glimpsed in a cloud that looks too much like your own. You become a pattern seeker, a story builder, not for truth, but for sanity. You begin seeing things at the edge of your vision, not people, not quite, shapes, like figures made of fog or breath. You don't tell anyone. You don't need to. They're seeing them too. You can tell by the way their eyes dart, by how they turn their head slowly, as if worried something is following too closely. Your cousin starts leaving bowls of water near every window. When you ask why, she only shrugs and says, "For them." You nod. That night, you dream of a mouth that opens wider than the sky and speaks in a voice made of wind chimes and thunder. You wake with blood on your pillow, just a nosebleed. Probably, you rinse your face and light a candle. The flame curves sideways, even though the window is closed. The river stops flowing, just one morning, and it's still no ice, no dam, just silence. People gather along its banks and stare. Someone kneels and dips their hand in. The water feels warm, too warm. A murmur spreads. It's waking. You don't ask what. The next day, fish appear on the banks, dozens of them. Dead? Yes, but their eyes are open, wide open. The healer, what's left of her memory, used to say that fish see the truth before it comes. You cover one with a cloth and walk away. Your cousin stops sleeping altogether. She says sleep is a trap, that the comet knows when you dream. You try to argue, but your words come out slow and useless, like trying to explain fire to someone already burning. You sit with her some nights, just to keep her company. She hums. You breathe. Sometimes that's all you can do. The comet changes again, no longer just white and gold. It now pulses with a dull pink hue, like a wound healing or worsening. You can't tell which. People begin speaking in fragments, unfinished thoughts. A man tries to tell you about his lost daughter, but forgets her name halfway through. A woman says she used to be someone else, but can't remember who. You stop asking questions. Everyone does. Inquiry feels invasive now, like knocking on a door that might open to something you can't close again. One morning, the church doors are sealed with wax, thick, red, melted into the cracks. No explanation, just silence. The new priest is gone, or perhaps he was never real. Someone suggests the comet sent him. Another says we dreamed him together. Either way, no one tries to break the seal. You walk past slowly, listening. You hear nothing, but you still walk faster after. The fields lie fallow, not from choice, but from neglect. Tools rust in soil, fences fall, crops rot half-grown. No one tends, no one harvests. Food appears when it's needed and vanishes when it isn't, or so it seems. You eat less. Hunger feels untrustworthy, like an echo of something human you're beginning to forget. And through it all, still and eternal, the comet watches. You stop thinking of the comet as a thing and begin thinking of it as a presence. Not a star, not an omen, not even a sign anymore, but a kind of intelligence, quiet, patient, observing without blinking. It no longer feels above you. It feels around you, in the walls, in the quiet creak of your bed frame, in the flicker of candlelight that sways even when the air is still. One morning, your reflection in the basin doesn't blink when you do, just stares back a heartbeat too long, as if waiting to see what you'll do next. You toss the water out. You draw the curtains tighter. The sun is wrong again, rising too late, setting too early, but never in the same rhythm. You try to mark it, to find some kind of pattern, but your ink dries too fast now, and the paper curls like it's afraid of what you'll write. The bells remain silent, the birds absent, and the wind has taken on a strange voice, like dozens of whispers stitched together by threadbare air. You hear your name in it sometimes. Not screamed, just breathed. You don't answer. You've learned better. A woman from the northern path arrives, barefoot and bleeding from the soles. She carries nothing but a bundle of sage and a story. She says she followed the comet across 3 villages, each quieter than the last. In one, everyone had painted their windows black. In another, no one was left at all, just meals half-eaten and beds still warm. In the third, there were only mirrors, dozens of them, hung from trees like fruit. She slept beneath them, she says, and dreamed of fire without smoke. You offer her food. She eats little. Later that night, she sits in your doorway and hums the same 3-note tune the friar used to sing. You don't ask how she knows it. Your cousin begins keeping stones in her mouth, small ones, smooth and pale, to weigh down the words, she says, so they can't rise. You try to take one out once and she snarls, a sound not quite human. After that, you leave her alone. She eats in silence, walks in silence, sleeps with her eyes half open. You want to worry, but there's no energy left for that. Worry feels like an old language, forgotten in favor of this new grammar of waiting, of watching, of withstanding. One night, something moves across the sky, a shadow, not a cloud, faster than a bird, slower than a falling star. It blots out the comet for a breath, just one, but in that instant, you feel the entire village inhale as one, a stillness so complete, it presses against your skin like weight. When the light returns, a child is missing. Her shoes are found beneath a tree, facing the wrong way. No one asks, no one searches. A bowl of milk appears at the foot of the tree the next morning, then two, then five. You add one yourself. You don't know why. The river begins to flow backwards. Just a trickle at first, then fully. You watch it from the old bridge, the water curling in loops like it's trying to remember how it got here. A man throws in a feather, it spins for minutes, then vanishes without trace. He walks away and never returns. People start placing offerings at the river's edge, bread, bones, tiny woven dolls. The water takes them all. One night, someone wades in. They don't come back. Their clothes are found folded neatly on the bank, dry. You stop sleeping indoors. The air inside feels tight, like lungs forgetting how to expand. You drag your blanket outside and lie under the stars, though they are fewer now. Only the comet remains, and its smaller twin. The rest have gone dim, like they've turned away, ashamed or afraid. You try to remember constellations. Can't. You ask your cousin the names of stars. She mouths a word that isn't language. You nod anyway. The soil begins to glow faintly. Not always. Just at night, in certain places, a soft green shimmer, like breath on glass. The friar's old path is brightest. You follow it once, all the way to the ridge. At the top, someone's drawn a circle in salt. Inside it, feathers, a candle, a single tooth. You don't step inside. You just watch until the wind scatters it. People begin to vanish without ceremony, one by one, not dramatically, no screams, no mess, just gone. A bed unslept in, a chair not pulled back. Some say they've crossed over, others say been taken, others say nothing at all. You start counting how many are left. 28, then 26, then 23. You don't ask who next. You don't pack. You just stay close to the ground, like roots might protect you. Your cousin stops moving. She lies in bed, eyes open, mouth full of stones. You feed her honey on a fingertip. She swallows, barely. You start writing things on her skin in charcoal questions, prayers, names. They smudge by morning. One night, you dream she walks into the sky, barefoot on stars. You don't tell her. The next morning, she's humming again. The same 3 notes. Always those 3. The comet pulses again. This time, everyone sees it. Once, twice, then still. You hear laughter from the hill. Real laughter. You run up, breath caught in your throat. At the top, a woman dancing alone. Barefoot, hair wild, arms wide. She sings in no known tongue. Others watch. No one joins. You stay. She finishes the dance, bows to the comet, then vanishes into the trees. You don't see her again, but her voice lingers in your mind like smoke. You wake one night with your mouth full of dust, not dirt dust. Fine, gray, like something very old trying to return. You rinse, you cough, you taste ash for hours. The next day, you find handprints on your window, too high to reach, too many fingers. No one else sees them, or pretends not to. And still, the comet stays, not moving, not changing, simply present, like a thought you can't forget, or a memory that was never yours. You stop asking it for answers. You stop asking anything for anything. The village has turned to breath and ritual. Wake, watch, wait, feed the ones who remain. Mark the doors. Watch the river. Listen, one dawn. You find your cousin gone. Her bed is empty, blanket folded, a line of stones leading from the door to the woods. You don't follow. You sit, you wait. A note is etched in the floorboards. It's not gone, but I am. You read it once, then twice, then erase it. That evening, the comet changes color. Not entirely just a pulse of red, then gold, then back, like it blinked. Not a warning, not a farewell, just a pulse, a heartbeat. You sit outside and wait for whatever's next, but nothing comes. Just quiet, just wind, just sky. By now the silence isn't eerie, it's expected. A new kind of weather, something ambient and invasive, like dampness or smoke, only it's made of absence instead of matter. You adjust to it the way you adjusted to the comet, slowly, unconsciously, until you realize it shaped every part of how you move. You walk more softly now. You breathe through your nose. You even speak with your mouth half closed, as if sound might provoke something. Even your thoughts feel quieter, like your mind has learned to whisper to itself. The comet has not changed in days, but you no longer trust what you see. You begin to doubt whether it was ever real, in the same way a rock or tree is real. It seems more like a verdict, hung in the air, a sentence without words. The villagers move like shadows now, slower than usual, but still functioning. They gather water, they mend clothing, they heat soup. No one smiles, not even the children. If there are children left, you haven't seen one in 2 days, or maybe 3. It's difficult to tell what counts as a day when the sky refuses to follow its old rhythm. The moon has started to appear at odd angles. You saw it once at noon, pale and too full. You looked away immediately. Someone has been leaving patterns of twine and feather on rooftops. You noticed them first on the chapel, then on the old grain mill, then your own home, neatly arranged, always in 3s. 3 feathers, 3 loops, 3 stones. You try to ask someone, but they just shake their head. No one claims responsibility. No one touches them. You leave them alone too. They feel sacred, but not in a holy way. More like footprints at the edge of something forbidden. Later, you see one with a single drop of blood in the center. You don't ask whose. That night, your dreams go blank. Not darkness blankness, like your mind was wiped before it could wander. The air feels warmer, but only inside your skin. You check your temperature, your breath steams in the cold, but your hands feel like they're holding a fever. You hear someone else mention this too, how they feel heat when they touch wood, but cold when they touch flesh. The boundaries have begun to bend. What used to feel firm stone, bone. Certainty now feels like wax softened too close to a flame. You sit on the edge of your bed and press your palms to your chest just to feel your own outline. You still exist, probably. The friar's humming has returned, though you haven't seen him. You hear it near the well sometimes, or in the forest, under the sound of leaves whispering. Others hear it too. A boy swears he saw the friar's face reflected in a puddle, though no one was near it. You start to believe the comet has begun recording things, dreams, gestures, music, and now plays them back, like echoes out of time. A woman weeps one morning and says she heard her dead mother singing in the wind. No one tells her she's wrong. We've all begun hearing the dead in strange places, sometimes in creaking doors, sometimes in the crackle of firewood, sometimes in silence that lingers too long. You carve a message into the table I was here. You don't know who it's for. Maybe the comet, maybe the thing behind it, maybe yourself. You carve another one the next day, just a name, then another. The table becomes a journal of reminders that things once lived here, that you once believed in ink and sound and permanence. Your cousin's name is carved 3 times. You don't remember doing that. The river begins to rise, not flood, just swell. It creeps higher with no rain, no melt. The water smells like ash and salt. Someone swears they saw a face beneath it, just under the surface, watching. Another claims the river is turning into a mirror. You go to see for yourself, and it's true. In a way, the surface is so still, so dark, that when you lean close, you don't see yourself. You see a version of yourself you don't recognize. Older, maybe not older, just different. It blinks. You leave quickly. The animals that remain have gone quiet too. You see a dog staring at the comet and howling without sound, its mouth open, throat straining, but nothing comes out. It continues until it collapses. Someone buries it with a feather in its mouth. That's become common now, feathers and stones buried with everything. People, animals, objects, as if we're returning everything to the earth with some form of tax paid. As if the sky requires more than death. It requires meaning. Someone paints over the old shrine, white paint, thick and uneven, covering every word, every symbol. A day later, someone carves a new symbol into the fresh coat, a spiral, then another beside it, then two more. They begin to appear all over the village, on fences, on bowls, on skin. A man shows you his arm, 5 spirals, inked in black ash, keeps the memories out. He says, you don't ask whose memories, you just nod. You find yourself drawing one in the dirt with your foot. You don't know why. The second comet, its smaller twin, has grown brighter. Some say it's now the real one, that the first was just a herald. You begin seeing it not as a twin, but as a mouth, open and waiting. The villagers have stopped calling them comets. Now they call them eyes, or teeth, or keys. You hear someone say, the key is turning. Another replies. Then what does it open? No one answers. You begin noticing tremors, small ones, but regular. At first you think it's just your imagination, but others feel it too. Cups rattle, dust falls from shelves. The ground no longer feels firm. It feels like skin stretched too tightly over something that wants to move. At night, you sleep on the floor to feel it better. Sometimes it shivers beneath you like breath in a dying chest. You press your ear to the boards and hear things you can't name. A soft groan, a distant chant, once, something that sounds like whispering in water. The village no longer speaks in full sentences. People use gestures, whistles, fragments of once-known words. You find you understand more that way. Language had begun to fail long ago. This is simply its funeral. You start carrying a piece of charcoal in your pocket to draw things instead. Not pictures, symbols. A line with 3 dots, a circle with teeth. Everyone's drawing now. On walls, on clothes, on skin. Some say it's for communication. Others say it's for protection. You don't ask which. You add a mark to your wrist each morning. It helps you feel real. The sky no longer feels high. It presses closer each day, not visually, but emotionally, like a ceiling descending. When you stretch, your fingers tingle. You dream of floating without moving. You dream of falling upward. You dream of a door opening in your chest and the comet stepping through it. You wake and feel lighter, but not better. Your bones feel hollow. You chew more, salt, roots, stone, anything dense, and through it all, the comet remains, silent, watching, bright enough now that it casts shadows even on cloudy nights. Your shadow has grown longer. It no longer follows you. It walks beside you. The night the sky turned green, no one screamed. That in itself was strange. You might expect panic tears, prayers, running, but instead, the village stood still. Every head tilted upward as if caught in the grip of a wordless command. The color wasn't violent or sudden. It seeped in, like dye dropped into clear water, slow and spiraling, a soft green hue that stained everything. It touched roofs, faces, snow. The comet shimmered against it like a needle in glass, its tail a pale smear of white fire slashing through the emerald haze. You watched from your doorway, arms crossed against the sudden warmth in the air, and for a moment, you felt as though you weren't inside your body. You were the sky watching the ground. You were the light curling into the corners of every eye. Beside you, someone whispered, "It's breathing again." You didn't turn to see who, you just nodded. Yes, it is. And it's deeper now, like lungs filling for something final. The next morning, the green had faded, but left behind a residue, a taste, a heaviness in the throat. Bread tasted wrong, too sweet, or not sweet enough. Water shimmered in the bowl like oil. Animals refused to eat. A rooster crowed backwards. A sharp inhale instead of a cry. You spent the whole morning watching it, waiting for it to do it again. It didn't. That was somehow worse. You found yourself touching objects twice, placing a spoon down, then adjusting it an inch, crossing thresholds with your left foot first, avoiding your own reflection. These weren't conscious choices. They were simply what the body did when the mind stepped aside. You caught others doing the same. A boy touched every fence post he passed. A woman hummed into every bowl before eating. A man turned his cup clockwise 3 times before drinking. No one asked why. Ritual had replaced conversation. The second comet, once faint, then bright, now eclipsed the first. It had split, or grown, or revealed its true shape. No one knew. It now bore rings around it, like smoke circling a flame. You stared until your eyes ached. In its glow, the trees shimmered silver, and snow fell upward for nearly an hour. You watched flakes lift from the ground, spiral lazily toward the sky like they'd remembered the wrong direction. Someone laughed. A child. You hadn't heard a child laugh in weeks. It didn't comfort you. It was a sound too sharp for this new world. That evening, 3 villagers walked into the woods and did not return. Their names were not spoken, not even whispered. Instead, stones appeared on their doorsteps, one for each, painted white. No one admitted to placing them. No one moved them. You walked past in silence, nodding once toward the houses, not in grief, but in recognition, the same way you nod at thunder. You dream again, only now the dreams feel less like yours. You see through other eyes. You speak languages you've never learned. You die, and wake, and die again. Each time in a different body. A child crushed beneath the falling timber. A night drowning in golden water. A mother watching her son vanish into ash. You wake sweating, trembling, but not afraid. There's no room left for fear, only observation. One night, the wind returns. It screams through the village like something wounded. Doors slam. Windows burst. Smoke curls backward into chimneys. You run outside to see the sky and fall to your knees. The comet, both of them now, are spiraling. Not across the sky, but into each other, slowly, inevitably. Their tails twist like ribbons of fire, forming a helix above the earth. You watch, mouth open, unable to breathe. The air is too full, too bright, and in that light, for a brief and terrible moment, you see everything. The village not as it is, but as it was, and as it will be, burned, buried, born again. You see yourself as a thread in a great tapestry, frayed and fraying. You see the sky as a wound, and the comet as the needle. Then darkness. Not night, darkness, thick, physical. A weight behind your eyes. You blink and find yourself in your home. Hours later, knees bruised, palms bloody. You don't remember how you got there. The hearth is lit. The room is warm. But the warmth feels borrowed. Like you're trespassing in a version of your life slightly misaligned. The shadows move slightly slower. The fire doesn't crackle. You sit in silence for hours, waiting for the room to reject you. It never does. That night, you don't sleep. You simply close your eyes and hover in the shape of rest. The next morning, the church bell rings. Once, then twice, then 13 times. No one moves. No one asks. You go to the chapel alone. The wax seal is broken. The door swings open. Inside, feathers cover the floor. Not fallen, but placed. Arranged in spirals. At the altar, a single candle burns with a black flame. You kneel, not because you believe, but because the air demands it. You whisper a name, not yours, not anyone you know, just a name that comes to your lips like water from a spring. When you leave, your footprints leave no mark in the feathers. That day, the villagers begin to gather without prompting. They come with offerings, bones, drawings, salt, small boxes wrapped in string. No one leads, no one speaks. You join them. You bring your cousin's final drawing, the one of the comet inside the house. You place it at the center of the circle that forms in the clearing. Above, the sky pulses, red, then violet. Then, something you can't describe, a color you feel more than see. The ground hums, the air thickens. You all stand, not expecting anything, just present. Hours pass, the sky remains. Then someone sings, one note, low, trembling. Then another joins, and another. Soon, you're all singing, a harmony with no melody, a sound that rises like mist from your bodies. You don't know the words. There are no words, just sound, raw, open, honest. The comet blinks once, and you understand. Not in language, not in thought, but in bone, in breath, in blood. You understand that the comet was never a warning. It was never a punishment. It was a mirror, and now the mirror has cracked. The mirror has cracked, and now nothing fits the way it used to. The world feels slightly misaligned, like a wheel that spins with a gentle wobble, imperceptible, unless you watch very closely. The sky no longer darkens at night, it deepens. Not black, not navy, but something beyond color, like an ocean without surface or depth. The stars that remain are wrong. Too close together, too still. Some blink, some do not. The comet, no longer two, no longer separate, has become one again, but not as it was before. It is wider now, not longer. Its tail fans out like a great wing, or a veil being drawn over the heavens. You can no longer look directly at it without crying, not from fear, but from some unfamiliar emotion that lives beneath language. A longing, a grief you didn't know you carried, a memory that isn't yours. The villagers have stopped calling it a comet. Now they call it the eye, the gate, the singer. Depending on whom you ask, you call it nothing. You no longer need names for things that know you better than you know yourself. The village is quieter than ever, yet more alive. People move slowly, deliberately, as if every step carries meaning. When someone speaks, it is with weight, with silence between the words like commas carved from breath. No one talks about what comes next. No one plans for spring. The future has become a misty shape beyond a door no one dares open. You wake one morning to find your bed scattered with feathers. They weren't there the night before. You sweep them into a bowl and place them by the window. Across the road, someone paints spirals across their shutters. Down by the well, a man kneels for hours, head bowed, hands open, not in prayer, but in reception. There's a shared understanding now something is coming, or perhaps something has already come, and we're only now beginning to feel its footsteps on the inside of our skin. The earth has begun to tremble in subtle, rhythmic pulses, not quakes, not movement, just a hum, low and deep, that passes through the soles of your feet into your bones. You feel it when you sit still long enough while eating, while watching the fire, while trying to remember how the sky used to look when it was just sky. The pulse doesn't hurt, but it disorients. It makes you forget small things, words, names, the way to the storehouse. You begin writing notes to yourself. Boil water. Don't sleep near the river. If it calls your name, don't follow. You don't know who taught you that last one. You suspect you taught it to yourself. The blacksmith's forge burns again, but no one knows who lit it. The building remains empty, yet the fire continues to crackle each night, steady and unyielding. Tools appear on the anvil, completed and pristine. A curved blade, a strange key, a rod with no clear function. No one touches them. They remain as they are, gifts, warnings, or remnants of work done in dreams. You walk past the forge one night and hear a hammer fall, though no one's inside. You keep walking. You don't look back. Looking back feels dangerous now, like you might catch a glimpse of something not meant for eyes. Children begin to draw again, not houses, not trees, but shapes, labyrinths, ladders, mouths filled with stars. When asked, they shrug. It's what it looks like. One says, "You ask what it is." She frowns, as if the question makes no sense. You don't ask again. The drawings begin to appear everywhere, etched into frost, scratched into dirt, carved softly into candle wax. You trace one with your finger and feel something stir in your chest. Not fear, not pain, a recognition, like you've seen this before, long ago, in a dream you forgot to wake from. A mist descends on the village, not from clouds, but from the ground. It rolls in around dusk, pale and scentless, and wraps around homes like gauze. Inside the mist, sound becomes muffled, faces blur, light bends. You begin walking with a hand outstretched, fingertips trailing walls, fences, anything solid. One night, the mist takes a child. No one saw it happen. No one heard. Just empty shoes by the door, and a mark on the ground, a spiral. drawn in ash. The next day, you see every home has left a single shoe outside its door. A ritual, an offering, a dare. The comet flares, just once. A bright flash that washes color from the world for nearly a full breath. When it fades, everything looks quieter, like the volume has been turned down. The trees seem frozen. The birds, if they still exist, make no sound. You open your mouth to speak and nothing comes out. You try again. Still nothing. You don't panic. You just sit. You wait. And slowly, over the next hour, sound returns. But not all of it. Just the sounds that matter. Fire, wind, breath. The rest are gone. You find a circle of villagers standing in the field by the old oak. No one speaks. No one moves. They stare upward, hands clasped behind their backs. You join them. You look, and you see it, something beyond the comet now. A third shape, distant, darker, moving slowly across the backdrop of stars like a tear that refuses to mend. It doesn't glow. It devours. Light disappears where it passes. A coldness spreads in your gut. Someone murmurs, "That's not for us." You believe them. That night, you sit beside your hearth and write a letter. Not to anyone in particular, not to be sent, just words, shaped like farewell. You write about your cousin, the feathers, the stones, the green sky. You write, "I am not afraid, but I don't know who I am anymore." You fold the letter and place it under your pillow. You sleep without dreams. When you wake, the letter is gone. In its place, a smooth stone, warm to the touch, marked with a spiral. The villagers begin to wear masks not for disguise, but for acknowledgement. They craft them from bark, cloth, bone, each unique, each silent. You make one too. From linen and charcoal, you wear it when you walk outside. It helps. The comet watches, but now, so do you. And all the while, the world waits. You wake with a sense that the village is no longer in the same place it used to be. The landscape still looks familiar. The same trees, the same crooked well, the same weathered chapel door, but the air feels different. Thicker, curved, like the world has folded inward on itself while you slept. And now space behaves like memory fragmented, overlapping, difficult to measure. Paths seem shorter, distances bend. You walk to the river and arrive at the chapel. You turn toward home and end up at the hilltop. It's not frightening, just disorienting. Like waking from a dream you're still half in. People stop asking for directions. They go where their feet lead. And sometimes it's enough. The sun no longer rises from the east. It just arrives, like a light turned on in another room. And then the sky brightens, not with sunlight, but with that silver-tinged glow that you now associate with the comet, which never sets, never fades, only changes sometimes slowly, sometimes in great sudden bursts like breath held too long and finally released. You no longer check for it. It's simply there, like time, like air, like the steady beating of something older than the world. The masks remain. Some are painted. Others bear symbols, stars, spirals, open mouths. They hang from trees when not worn. You've grown used to seeing them sway in the wind, watching you with empty eyes. They are neither threatening nor comforting. They simply are. You wear yours each time you leave your home, and though no one ever said it was required, you understand now that it is. The face is too personal for this new world, too fragile. You meet others on the path and nod, masked faces passing like boats in a mist. You do not speak, but you are not alone. Children no longer speak aloud. They draw, constantly, not with purpose, just movement. Their fingers drag chalk across stone, charcoal across wood, even fingertips across dirt. The drawings never repeat. They spill into spirals and stars, ladders that go nowhere, gates that open into nothing. You found one on your wall this morning, a door with no handle, your cousin's name beneath it. She's been gone for weeks. You traced the drawing with your finger, and it felt warm. You didn't wash it away. You've stopped washing much of anything. The idea of clean has changed. It now means untouched, not unsullied. You let the dust settle where it wants. Food still appears. You don't ask how. You open your door each morning to find something: root vegetables, dried meat, a loaf of blackened bread wrapped in moss. It's never warm, but it's enough. Someone, somewhere, is still doing the work, or something. You wonder if the comet provides, or if people, slowly, have learned how to ask for what they need without speaking. Once you opened your door and found nothing but a bowl of clear water, you drank it. It tasted like memory. The animals have changed, not visibly, but in presence. The dogs no longer follow. The birds do not fly. You catch glimpses of hair blinking slowly in the underbrush. A cow standing motionless at the edge of a field, as if listening to something you cannot hear. The forest has grown silent but thick. Trees lean closer. Roots curl across paths like questions. You don't go there anymore. Not because you're afraid, because you sense you're not welcome. Or perhaps you're no longer needed. A child is born in the village. First in weeks, maybe longer. No one announces it, but you feel it. The air changes, a sharpness softens, a sound brief, high-pitched, like a bell struck once in a great stone hall ripples across the rooftops. You go to the chapel. Others are already gathered. No one enters. You stand in a circle, listening. From inside, a cry, then silence, then a low murmur, like a lullaby hummed by 100 mouths without language. You close your eyes. You see the comet, but it is no longer just in the sky. It's in the child's voice. It's in the pause after. It's in the hush that follows creation. You go home without speaking. You sleep without dreaming. You wake without fear. The sky cracks, not visibly, not loudly, but something shifts. A pressure lifts. A veil pulls back. And suddenly, you see the stars again. Not all of them, but enough. Enough to remember how small you are. Enough to feel the familiar ache of distance, of depth. The comet remains, but it's softer now. Its edges blur. Its tail no longer cuts. It trails, gently, a whisper instead of a scream. You stand outside for hours, tracing constellations you once knew. Orion, the plow, the hunter's eye. You laugh, quietly, at how mundane they look now, but comforting too, like old friends returning after a war. The villagers begin to speak again, not often, not loudly, but clearly. Words like still and here and yes. You hear someone say thank you to the sky. Someone else says we're learning. You nod. You begin to write again. Not notes, not warnings, not names, but poems, short ones, fragments, a line at a time. The sky cracked, and we listened. She left when the wind turned inside out. You don't know what they mean. You don't care. They feel honest. That's enough. You light a fire and invite others to sit. 3 come. 1 brings stones. 1 brings a song. 1 brings silence. You share them all. For the first time in what feels like years, you smile. Not because anything is resolved. Not because the danger is past, but because you feel your body again. Your laugh feels like blood returning to a limb. You feel the pulse in your wrist. You remember your own name. The dreams return, but they're different now. Less foreign, less filled with falling. You dream of walking through corridors made of starlight, of a woman with hands made of smoke brushing your face. You dream of a great gate opening, not in fear, but in invitation. You wake with tears, but they're soft ones. One morning, the comet is gone. Just gone. You stare at the sky and see only stars. No tail, no wound, no watcher. You don't panic. No one does. You all stand in the square. You look up. You hold hands. You breathe. You're not sure what happens next. But whatever it is, you're still here. The morning after the comet vanished, the world held its breath, not in dread, but in the cautious hush of something sacred leaving the room. The sky felt bare, not empty like a hand that had let go rather than disappeared. You stood outside, coat unfastened, not feeling the cold. Around you, rooftops glistened with dew, and the silence had shifted again, not hollow, but listening. For the first time in memory, you could hear birds, faint, hesitant, like flutes testing their notes after too long unsounded. You didn't speak, neither did the villagers who slowly emerged from their homes, blinking, as if waking into a world they weren't sure they remembered. A woman reached out and touched a tree. A man knelt to smell the soil. Someone laughed, once, quietly, as if testing whether joy still functioned in the absence of fire. You felt your chest fill in a way it hadn't for weeks, not with certainty, not even hope, but with space. The kind of space left behind by something immense and important, something that had taken up so much of you, and now was gone, not stolen, not ripped away, but gently placed down and walked away from. And so, you stood, and so, you waited, and so, you began again. The village didn't celebrate. There were no feasts, no bells, no declarations, but there was a shift, a return of rhythm. People swept their floors again, repaired hinges, rubbed oil into cracked leather boots. They didn't talk about the comet, not directly. When it came up, it was only in symbols, a gesture to the sky, a spiral traced in the air, a pause in conversation when someone said light. You found that you, too, no longer needed the word. It had already shaped too much of you. You couldn't speak of it the same way you couldn't explain warmth to a flame. It had passed through you, rewritten you, and left. That was enough. That had always been enough. You walked the path to the river and found it flowing again, clear and cold. The dead fish were gone. In their place, pebbles smooth as eggs, glistening like polished bone. You took one and carried it in your pocket. It felt like a relic, not of destruction, but of witness. You sat by the bank for a long while and watched the water fold over itself, and for the first time in what felt like centuries, you allowed yourself to feel ordinary. No visions, no trembling, just you, wind, stone, flow, behind you. Someone sang, a real song, with words. You didn't turn to see who, you simply listened. In the evenings, fires burned again, not as beacons or rituals, but for warmth, for gathering. You returned to your hearth and found your hands no longer shook when lighting the kindling. You brewed tea. You sat in silence, and the silence felt like a guest, not a threat. The mask you once wore hung by the door. You no longer needed it. Your face felt your own again. You looked in the mirror and saw someone tired, but intact. Eyes older, yes. Wiser, perhaps. But more than anything, open. The villagers began speaking in full sentences again. Not always, not fluently, but enough. Children played, not with chalk drawings of stars, but with sticks, stones, rope, games you recognized, games with rules. A group of them dragged an old cart through the square and declared it a dragon. They gave it wings of linen and painted its face with ash. They roared. They laughed. One even cried when the wing tore. It was beautiful. It was loud. It was utterly, fantastically normal. You visited the chapel, now unsealed. The inside was clean. The feathers had been swept, the spirals erased. Only the black candle remained, unlit. No one dared move it. You sat in the front pew and exhaled. You did not pray. You did not beg. You simply sat. Later, the new priest came and sat beside you. He said nothing. You nodded. That was enough. When you left, you touched the doorframe just lightly, just in thanks. You wrote again, longer pieces, full thoughts, sentences that ended in periods rather than ellipses. You found the words came easier now, like old friends returning home after a long winter. You wrote stories, not about the comet, not directly, but about people who changed, and watched, and endured. You read them to no one. You kept them by your bed. They helped you sleep. The forest opened again. The trees, once leaning, now stood tall and quiet. You walked among them with careful feet, breathing in the smell of moss and damp bark. The animals returned cautious, but present. A fox crossed your path and paused to look at you. Not as a threat, not as prey, but as something recognizable. You nodded to it. It blinked. Then it moved on. At the river, a woman built a small shrine, not for worship, for remembrance. A circle of stones, a feather in the center, and a single word carved into wood before. You didn't ask who it was for. You simply added a stone, then walked away. The sky remained clear. Not always, but clear enough. Rain came, and it was gentle. Thunder came, and it rolled low and soft like a dog turning in its sleep. The stars returned in full, blinking in strange and familiar patterns. You laid on your back one night and traced constellations with your finger in the air. No one watched. You were alone, and it felt good. The dreams didn't stop, but they changed. You still walked strange halls and spoke in forgotten tongues, but now there was no fear, only curiosity. You dreamed of doors opening and not closing, of children walking hand in hand with figures made of starlight, of a world rebuilding itself slowly, word by word, breath by breath. You woke without dread, sometimes with a smile. Someone began ringing the bells again, not regularly, just once every few days. A single tone, high and soft, like a chime from a far-off shore. It echoed across the rooftops like a question or a hello. You stood in the square and listened each time. You didn't need to know why. One evening, you opened your door and found a bowl. Inside a stone, a sprig of rosemary, and a folded paper. You unfolded it. Inside, written in uneven charcoal strokes, it said, "It's not the sky that changed. It was us." You held it to your chest and closed your eyes. And for a long time, nothing else happened. And it was perfect. The stillness that followed the comet's disappearance did not feel like emptiness. It felt like healing, as if the world, bruised and bent under months of unspoken weight, had finally been allowed to breathe again. But the breath was not one of relief. It was reverent, like entering a room where something sacred has just happened, and the air itself still holds the memory. You moved more slowly now, not from exhaustion, but from care, like someone carrying a vessel they don't want to spill. The days flowed without resistance. You rose. You walked. You touched the earth with your feet and felt it respond not with sound, but with presence. The soil was looser, warmer. Even the wind, once sharp and coated, had softened into something like a sigh. And yet, no one ever said it's over. That phrase never passed any lips, because deep down, you all knew better. The comet had not been a chapter. It had been a mirror, and what it revealed was not something that could be undone. It had changed the ink you wrote yourself with. It had, in some way, folded you into a new shape. And now you moved through a world not of endings, but of echoes. The first planting season came quietly. No bells, no songs, just hands in dirt, fingers coaxing seeds into dark soil, not asking for miracles, just for life. People worked in pairs now, even those who had always preferred solitude. Something about being watched by the sky had made everyone more aware of what it meant to be seen. You helped an old man mend his fence. You didn't know his name. You didn't ask. You just passed him nails when he reached. He nodded. That was the whole conversation. It was enough. Across the fields, children walked barefoot, dragging sticks through the earth, laughing not with glee, but with something quieter, like the kind of joy you only allow yourself once you've remembered what sorrow really is. The spiral symbols slowly faded, rubbed away by time and weather. No one rushed to erase them, but no one redrew them either. They had served their purpose, like footprints in snow. Now, paths reformed, some in old places, some in new. A merchant returned with fabric dyed in colors you had nearly forgotten: saffron, indigo, the deep red of iron-rich soil. People touched the cloths with reverence, not because they were rare, but because they were real, tangible, proof that beauty had survived, that people still made things just to be seen. The chapel's bell began to ring once a week, not to summon, but to remind. A single chime, low, deliberate, a heartbeat from the village to the sky. You began to walk when it rang. Nowhere special, just movement. You passed others doing the same. Sometimes they joined you, sometimes they didn't. You didn't speak. It wasn't silence. It was understanding. One morning, the river ran gold, just for an hour, a trick of light, perhaps, or something else. People gathered, but no one reached for it. They stood at the bank like worshippers before a flame they didn't need to touch. You dipped your fingers into the water. It felt the same, but when you looked at your palm, you swore it shimmered. You wiped it on your coat, said nothing, and went home. Dreams returned in fragments, not the chaotic, burning dreams of the comet days, but small visions. You dreamed of weaving, of smoke rising from chimneys, of your cousin's voice singing a lullaby she never learned. One night, you dreamed of the comet again, but it was a seed now, buried deep in black soil, waiting. You woke with your hand clenched around your own heartbeat. People began to gather stories again, not to explain the past, but to carry it forward, around fires, at wells. While mending boots, they shared what they saw. A man said he once heard music under the earth. A woman said her mirror had shown her the face of her unborn child. A child said the sky had whispered their name in a voice made of moss. No one doubted. No one questioned. The stories were not for facts. They were for remembering, and remembering was sacred. You found the blacksmith's forge open again. Inside, tools hung with care, the hearth warm, the air full of iron and promise. The blacksmith, older, quieter, worked in steady rhythm. You nodded to him. He didn't stop, but you could tell by the tilt of his head that he saw you. On a shelf, you saw something new, not weapons, not hinges, but shapes, small spirals, stars, circles. You picked one up. It fit perfectly in your palm. He said nothing. You left a coin. He left it in your hand. The field where the villagers once stood in silent witness grew strange wildflowers. Tall, pale things with translucent petals and thin green stems that swayed even without wind. No one picked them. They were not for bouquets. They were reminders. You walked there often, sat among them, and listened, not to sound, but to presence. You felt the hum return sometimes, low and buried, like the earth remembering a melody it wasn't ready to sing again. Children born after the comet had clear eyes, still, focused. They rarely cried. They often stared. Some said they smiled too early, as if already in on the joke of existence. You held one once, briefly, and they placed their small hand over your heart, not in play, in stillness, as if measuring something. You blinked. When you opened your eyes again, they were asleep. One night, a rain of ash fell, not from fire, but from sky. Pale, weightless flakes that melted on skin. You stood outside with your arms outstretched. It clung to your lashes, your hair, your coat. It didn't burn. It smelled like paper. People came out and stood with you. No one spoke. And when it stopped, you all went back in, brushing it gently from your shoulders, your door frames, your lives. The comet's shape began to appear again, not in the sky, but in dreams, in sketches, in the way people arrange stones or firewood, unconscious echoes, like something that once lived inside you, leaving behind fingerprints. You didn't try to force meaning from it. You just nodded, every time, and continued what you were doing. You walked the woods again, this time without fear. The trees felt older, yes, but welcoming. You touched bark and felt a pulse, not literal, something deeper. You knelt and placed your ear to the moss and swore you heard breathing. You didn't stay long. You didn't have to. Some places don't ask for your time, just your notice. And in all this, in every breath of soil and sky, the absence of the comet became not a hole, but a doorway. You understood, finally, that it was never here to destroy or punish. It was here to open, and it had, not the sky, not the world, but you. The days no longer announce themselves, they just arrive, gently, like a friend entering a room without knocking. You wake not because of sound, or light, or routine, but because the world invites you to rise. There is no urgency now, no dread, No hidden thread of tension humming under your ribs. The village feels lighter, not in silence, but in density, as if the air itself has loosened its grip on gravity. Even the houses seem to lean less. The trees stretch taller. The shadows pool more softly on the ground. You walk barefoot some mornings, feeling the soil, the dew, the uneven texture of stones warmed by the sun. Your steps are slower now, not out of caution, but care, as if each movement might ripple into something far beyond you. There's no fear of it, just respect. You find yourself pausing more often, not to rest, but to witness. A bird on a rooftop, the way a leaf spins down through a shaft of morning light, the murmur of your own breath syncing with the rhythm of the wind. You don't mark the days on calendars anymore. You mark them in colors, in sensations, in the changing way the air smells just before dusk. You've stopped asking what time it is. You've stopped asking time anything at all. The people you pass seem to carry the same quiet. You greet each other with a soft nod of those who have seen too much to pretend anymore. Words are fewer, but deeper. When someone says good morning, it means something now. It means we're still here. It means this moment matters. And it does. A man sharpens a blade not because he fears war, but because he plans to carve wood. A child chases a goat not out of chaos, but for joy. Laughter returns like the first spring flower, timid, radiant, real. You laugh too, though it still surprises you when it escapes your mouth. The sound feels foreign and familiar all at once, like a song you once knew and forgot the words to, but not the melody. You let it rise. You let it carry. No one asks what it's for. Some of the old rituals remain, but their meanings have softened. People still leave stones at the riverbank. Not for loss now, for gratitude. You bring one yourself. A smooth, dark river rock you carry in your palm all day. When you lay it down, you whisper thank you, and it feels enough. No great ceremony, just presence. There's a woman who plants feathers in the earth now. She says they grow into dreams. Whether it's true or not doesn't matter. She believes it, and others do too. You see them in the fields, rows of white and black feathers sprouting like strange crops, nodding gently in the wind. At night, you walk among them, and the ground feels softer beneath your feet, as if it remembers something beautiful it once forgot. The spiral symbol makes its way back, not carved in doors or scratched in dust, but woven into fabric, painted on bowls, traced into loaves of bread. It's no longer a warning or a cry. It's a story, a memory held in shape. You trace it with your fingertip on the rim of your cup and feel calm settle in your belly. The village seems to turn in slow circles now, people moving through patterns that overlap and interlock. Paths cross more often, and when they do, people linger. They sit together more, share food, share stories. Not of the comet directly. No one says the word, but it's there, under every story. A shared silence, a shared before, a shared becoming. You find a book on your doorstep one morning. No note, no name. Its pages are blank. You carry it with you all day and feel its weight differently than other books. That night, you sit by your window with a candle and write in it. Not a story, just a line, I am not what I was. And that is a kind of grace. You close the book and sleep deeply, dreamlessly. In the morning, another page is filled, not your handwriting. A line reads, "You are exactly as you must be." You touch the ink. It's dry. The wind begins to carry scents again. Lavender, earth, apples, rain. You breathe it in like medicine. You spend more time outdoors now, not to escape, but to return. You begin rebuilding your garden, not for harvest, but for beauty. You plant things that smell good, that bloom briefly and brightly. You find pleasure in trimming vines, in clearing stone, in kneeling with soil under your nails. You build a bench. You sit, and sit, and sit, sometimes with others, often alone. But even alone, you feel held. The sky has grown quiet, yes, but it has not grown cold. The stars return with new brightness, clearer than you remember, as if they've come closer to see how you're doing. You name them again, one by one, not the old names, but new ones. Names that feel right. You give them meanings no one else knows. They are yours. Each night, you sit with them, speak to them. You tell them about your day. You ask nothing in return, and they listen. That's enough. The chapel holds a small candle now, always lit, even when no one's inside. People take turns tending it. You go once a week. You bring honey. You sit in the pew farthest back and close your eyes. You don't pray. You just breathe. You don't need answers anymore. You just need presence. You feel it there, not divine, exactly, but real, old, watching, perhaps, or remembering. The candle flickers, and you smile. You write more often. Letters never sent, thoughts not intended for anyone. Recipes you invent, maps of dreams. You fill the blank book slowly, page by page. Each line is a thread. You don't try to weave them. You just let them fall into place. The book gains weight, as if the words carry more than ink, as if they are anchoring something invisible. One morning, you wake before sunrise and step outside. The sky is black but kind. Stars scatter above you like breadcrumbs leading home. You walk, no purpose, just movement. At the edge of the village, you stop, you look up, and for a moment, just one, you see it again. The faintest streak of silver across the sky, not bright, not bold, just a whisper, a brushstroke, a closing parenthesis. You blink, and it's gone. You stand for a long time, holding that silence. You do not weep. You don't call for others. You simply whisper, "Thank you," and then, quietly. I remember, spring arrives without ceremony, as if ashamed of its lateness. The trees don't burst into bloom all at once. They stretch into it slowly, cautiously, one leaf at a time. The ground, once tight and trembling, softens beneath your feet. Worms return. Moss thickens. Small purple flowers you can't name push through cracks in the stone path near the well. No one calls them anything. No one needs to. Their presence is enough. The village feels like it's remembering itself in fragments. The blacksmith reopens his doors not with a proclamation, but with a warm, steady fire that seems to glow from within him. A woman begins carving wooden spoons again, her fingers stiff but determined. Children begin to run again, not wildly, but with a certain grounded joy. They don't look up at the sky as much. They look around, at the earth, at each other, at you. You return their glances and find yourself smiling more than you realize. It doesn't feel like recovery. It feels like continuation. As if the world was not broken, but merely rewritten. The script changed. The grammar softened. And now, slowly, you're learning to speak it again. One morning, you step outside to find the spiral symbol traced in dew across your window pane. It vanishes in the sun, but the impression lingers. You look around. No one's near. But a cat you've never seen before sits on your stoop. It stares at you with the sort of calm only creatures who've seen gods can hold. You sit beside it. It doesn't move. The two of you remain like that for a long time, watching the steam rise from the tea in your hand. You don't try to name the cat. It feels older than names. Eventually it leaves. You don't watch it go. Some things are meant only to arrive. The river has begun to sing, not literally, not in the sense of sound, but in the way its motion now feels like music. You watch it curl around the stones with a rhythm that speaks of patience, of return, of cycles too deep to see. Someone builds a small wooden bridge across the narrowest bend. It creaks in the wind. At night, it glows faintly. You think about crossing it, but not yet. You aren't sure what waits on the other side. Or maybe you just want to stay here a little longer between places, between thoughts. The villagers respect that space now. No one asks where you're going. No one hurries you along. The days are long, and nobody measures them. A man begins to collect forgotten things buttons, bent nails, broken combs. He strings them along fences like garlands. He says they catch memories. People begin leaving their own objects there. A torn glove, a rusted key, a bell without its clapper. You add a small wooden figure you carved during one of the Comet nights. It has no face, just hands, reaching outward. You hang it gently from a nail and walk away. When you return days later, someone has painted a gold line down its spine. You don't ask who, you simply nod. You wake one evening to a faint knocking, not on your door, on the inside of your chest. A sensation, like something stirring within, not painful, just present. You sit up, you light a candle, you write in your book. The ink glides smoother than ever. You don't check what you've written until morning. When you do, the page reads, "The door is not behind you. It's inside." You close the book. You sit with that thought for a while. Then you go outside and stand barefoot on the ground until you feel the pulse again. That low, quiet beat the earth sometimes carries when it thinks no one's listening. You meet an old friend by the well, someone you hadn't seen since the long silence began. They look different, lighter, as if something has been removed, but not violently, like a thorn that finally worked itself free. You don't talk about the past. You talk about bread and stars, and the time you both saw a frog hop into the chapel and sit in the front pew like a very small, confused priest. You both laugh, and in the middle of that laughter, something old and locked inside your ribs opens. Just a little. You feel it. You both do. You hug. The world tilts gently, like a boat adjusting to new weight. Rain comes again, but it's warm. It drapes the village in silver mist. You stand in it without a hood. You feel the drops collect in your hair, your eyebrows, the corners of your lips. They taste like minerals, like birth. You open your hands and let the sky touch your palms. Someone sings, somewhere close. Not a hymn, not a song you know, but it's beautiful. You don't find the singer. You don't need to. Their voice finds you. A child is born under this rain. The village gathers, not to witness, just to be near. You light a fire. You share a meal. You tell a story about a time when the stars went silent, about the color green in the sky, about how you forgot your own name and found it again, written in someone else's eyes. The others listen, not with awe, with recognition. That's the difference now. Stories no longer amaze. They confirm we are not alone. We were never alone. The world just forgot how to say hello. One night, as you sit near the window, you see a flicker of light in the distance, high, faint, moving too slowly to be a falling star. You don't reach for meaning, you simply watch. A warmness blooms in your chest, a sense of yes, a sense of, oh, there you are. You place a hand on the glass and whisper nothing at all. Just breath, just presence. The spiral appears again, not in symbols, but in life, in the way the village paths have curved toward each other, in the way vines grow around the doorposts now, in how people gather and drift and return like tides. Everything circles back, not to the beginning, but to something more whole, something that includes what was and what is and what might be. You feel it in your dreams. You see it in the way your fingers touch wood, water, skin. Nothing is linear anymore. Nothing needs to be. You write a final line in your book. Some things end. Some things return. Some things simply open. You leave the book on your table. You blow out the candle. You step outside. The sky is black. The stars are clear. The world is quiet, but not silent. Not anymore. You listen, and you hear the breath of it all. Still moving. Still singing. Still here. You begin waking not from sleep, but into stillness and awareness so soft, it feels like standing in the palm of something vast and gentle. You rise with the first threads of light that stitch through the mist, not out of duty or habit, but because your body chooses to meet the world. The house breathes with you, wooden beams groaning like old lungs, windows fogged with the sighs of the night. Outside, the earth is always damp now, not soaked, just wet enough to remember that it has held rain. The grass gives beneath your feet with a hush, and the moss on stones holds the imprint of your step for a moment longer than before. You pass the well. The bucket creaks even when still. You nod to it. This has become your ritual, acknowledging things, not asking them to serve you, not bending them to meaning, just saying, in gesture, I see you. The birds sing now. Yes, but not like they used to. Their songs are more precise, more broken. You stop to listen to one in a tree, and the pause it takes between notes feels like it's waiting to hear your response. You don't sing back. You simply listen, and that feels like a kind of harmony. The village breathes differently now. Life continues. Yes, but without the fever of before. There's no more racing, no more clamor. Even work feels slower, intentional, not out of laziness, but reverence. The blacksmith doesn't hammer to shape metal anymore. He coaxes it. The baker shapes each loaf like it might carry a secret inside. The children build spirals in the mud with sticks, never saying why. You no longer need why. The question itself feels old-fashioned, like asking why water runs downhill. It just does. Some things don't need to be unwrapped. Some things are already the gift. You help repair the roof of the healer's house, and when you finish, she gives you a satchel of dried herbs, not as payment, but as acknowledgement. You bow your head when she hands it to you, and her eyes crinkle with a smile that says everything without saying anything at all. That evening, the wind carries a new sand smoke. Yes, but laced with honey and salt. You follow it and find 3 women near the chapel, singing as they roast something over an open flame. They beckon you closer with a glance, not a word. You join them. They pass you a piece of bread soaked in the oil from the fire. You eat it slowly, and the warmth moves through your limbs like a memory of summer. One of them hums a tune you think you remember from the Comet days, a lullaby that once felt like a warning, but now wraps around you like a shawl. You sit for a long time without speaking. When the fire dies, they leave one ember behind, and you carry it home in a cup of clay, protecting it from the wind like a newborn thought. That night, you sit by your window with the ember burning low. The stars scatter like coins on velvet, and the sky feels closer than ever, not heavy intimate. You press your forehead to the glass and think of all the things you've forgotten: the taste of berries in spring, the smell of ink on your fingers, the sound of your name said with love. They come back in pieces. They always do. Healing isn't a line. It's a spiral. 2. You write that down on a scrap of parchment and fold it into the book beside your bed. The book has thickened with pages. It holds your hours now. It weighs more than paper should. You suspect it knows more than it contains. In the morning, the mist brings with it a group of travelers, 5, maybe 6, wrapped in cloaks dusted with frost, faces open, eyes searching. You greet them with warm broth and dry socks. They sit around your hearth and share stories of towns where snow fell upward, and stones rearranged themselves at night into words no one dared speak aloud. You nod. You believe them. You offer them honey and a place to rest. They don't stay long. None of them do. But one leaves behind a bundle of woven grass shaped into a circle. You hang it by your door. No reason. It just feels right. Weeks pass like smoke. Days blur. But not because you're lost, because you're present. You plant seeds and forget where you put them. And when they bloom, it feels like a small gift from an older version of yourself. You begin to paint again shapes. Mostly swirls, eyes, gates. You don't show them to anyone, but you do leave one tucked into the roots of the tallest tree in the forest, a return offering. The children have built a structure from fallen branches and mud. They call it the listening place. You sit there one afternoon, alone, and find they were right. You hear things, not voices, not music, but truth. The truth of the wind's direction, the weight of old sorrow in the soil, the hush between bird calls that feels like the sky waiting to be heard. You sit for hours. When you return home, your ears still ring softly, like bells from somewhere deep inside the earth. You receive a letter, not written, but spoken. Someone knocks once on your door and leaves a handful of seeds wrapped in bark, inside tiny black spirals that look like they were carved rather than grown. You plant one, just one, in the softest patch of earth beside your home. Each morning, you check on it. You don't speak to it. You just kneel beside it. One morning, it sprouts. You nod. You begin building a path, not to anywhere, just from your door outward, stone by stone. Others begin to walk it. Some leave offerings. One day, someone lays a mirror face down at its edge. You don't move it. You never see your own reflection again after that. But you don't miss it. You feel yourself in your limbs, in your voice, in the way your shadow curls when the sun rises. You are enough. And then one evening, long after the sun has gone and the stars have risen, you hear the bell, not the chapel bell, not any bell you know. It rings once, from somewhere far away, low, round, deep enough to carry through bone. You stop, you listen. Everyone does. The whole village pauses, breath held like a prayer. It does not ring again. It doesn't need to. The next morning, you rise with no plans, no list, no expectations. You open the door, feel the warmth of the morning sun on your collarbone, and walk. You walk beyond the village, beyond the spiral trees, beyond the river. You walk until the road ends. Then you keep walking. Because some journeys do not have destinations, only directions. You walk until the world forgets its shape. Past fields that no longer obey the old rules of growth, where sunflowers bend toward the moon, and wheat rises in gentle spirals instead of rows. The path beneath your feet narrows, and then dissolves into moss, then into stone, then into something softer, like memory. You keep going, not because you are searching, but because you are listening, and something is calling not with sound, but with rhythm. The sky above is the deepest blue you've ever seen, not dark, but vast, like a question you finally stopped trying to answer. You pass through groves that hum with bees, and meadows where the grass hums back. At one point, you find a river flowing uphill, slow and deliberate. You watch a single leaf ride its surface, turning as it climbs. You do not try to explain it. You step over it, bow your head, and continue. There's no map in your hands. There's only a pulse in your chest that says, yes, this way. Sometimes you see other travelers far off, across ridges, or silhouetted against the trees. You do not speak. You nod. They nod back. And the recognition between you is enough. You're not alone, even when no one walks beside you. Days pass, perhaps weeks. You eat when you're hungry. Drink from springs whose waters taste like quartz and dusk. Sleep beneath a sky so thick with stars they look like spilled flour across a dark table. You dream, of course, always now. But your dreams no longer feel separate from waking. In one, you climb a tower made of birdsong. In another, you kneel before a door made of your own name. And in all of them, you're not afraid. You're listening. And something is listening back. One morning, you wake with a stone in your palm. Though you remember falling asleep with empty hands, it's warm, smooth, and engraved with a spiral so small, you must close one eye to see it clearly. You carry it without knowing why. You do not question gifts anymore. The world is offering itself constantly now. The only thing it asks in return is that you notice. Eventually, you reach a place that does not feel like a place. There are no trees, no wind, just a clearing of stillness. The air here is dense, but not heavy. It presses gently on your skin like water, inviting rather than restraining. At the center is a pool, shallow, silent. Not a ripple disturbs its surface, even when a feather drifts down and touches it. You sit at its edge, fold your legs beneath you, and simply look, not into it, into yourself. The water does not reflect your face. It reflects your feeling, your presence, your quiet. You see sorrow there, yes, and joy. You see the weight you carried through the comet's passage, the shape of the silence that followed, the long, aching curve of your own becoming. It is not a judgment. It is a mirror with no opinion. You breathe once, twice, and the surface of the water breathes with you. Then, without instruction, you place the spiral stone into the pool. It does not sink. It floats, then vanishes. You stay there for a long time. Maybe a day, maybe longer. Time does not pass here, it simply unfolds. Eventually, when you rise, you find your feet know which direction to go. You don't think, you follow. The path leads you through a field of tall grasses that hum when touched. Their song is a memory you had not realized you'd forgotten your mother's voice calling you in for supper. The feel of bark beneath your childhood fingers, The sound of your own breath when you first learned to run. You cry, softly, not out of grief, out of recognition. You have found the thread again, and it has found you. When you return to the village, it has changed. Not dramatically, not visibly, but undeniably. The houses are the same, the people are the same, but there is something else, a gentleness, a spaciousness, as if everything has exhaled. They greet you with nods, with tea, with quiet embraces that linger a heartbeat longer than before. You are not a stranger. You are not a hero. You are simply returned, and that is enough. You resume your days tending to the garden, repairing the path, listening to the wind, but the world speaks differently to you now. You understand the rhythm beneath things. When a bird perches on your sill, you nod. When a child laughs in the distance, you pause and listen until the sound fades. You write again, not in your book, in the dirt, in smoke, in bread. Everything becomes language when you stop insisting it be spoken. The chapel has no doors anymore. It is always open. People come and go, not for sermons, but for silence, for stillness, for stories. Some days you sit there and hold someone's hand. You do not need to know their name. You only need to be a witness to their breathing, their becoming, their being. The candle burns perpetually, not as a flame of warning, but as a reminder that light exists, that it chooses to stay. And then one night, just as the sky turns the color of old ink, you hear the bell, the one you heard long ago, that single tone, deep and round. You stand. So do others. All across the village, people rise not in panic, but in answer. You all walk, silently, toward the field where the tall grasses hum. You stand in a circle, no one speaks, and above you, clear, soft, and unmistakable, a new light appears. Not a comet, not a star, something gentler, a soft eye, a distant flame. It pulses once, then once more, then stills. No one needs to say it. You all feel it. Something has opened, and it will not close. You sit, the grasses bend beneath you like cushions, the sky remains whole, the stars blink, the moon watches, the light above does not fade, it simply becomes, and you, too, become. And so the journey quiets, not with a final breath, but with a long and gentle sigh that stretches across the horizon, like smoke rising from a candle recently snuffed. You do not return to who you were, because that person no longer fits the shape of the world. Instead, you carry them like a story you once told yourself tenderly, without regret. The sky is vast again. Yes, but it no longer presses down. It hovers above you like a slow lullaby, like the low hum of the earth remembering your name. The village continues, not untouched, but softened. People do not rush anymore. They move like the seasons slow. True, impossible to measure with clocks. Children sleep deeper, elders smile more often, doors stay open, and at night, the wind speaks kindly to the trees, and the trees reply with rustling laughter. You sit by your window, warm tea in hand, the candle flickering its small, steady glow. Outside, the stars blink without urgency. They are not signs now, just companions. Old friends who've stopped trying to be understood, content to simply be seen. And in that stillness, you feel it again, the rhythm, the spiral, the soft tug of something eternal, something that holds you without holding back. You close your eyes, not to sleep, but to rest, to settle, to fold back into the quiet that birthed you. The story never ends. It just moves, and you are already part of its next beginning.